Markelle Fultz went down with a left knee injury on this play, and in this video, we're gonna break it down frame by frame and take a look at what could have happened. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. At the time of recording this, we haven't gotten any official word other than Fultz being ruled out for the game, so we're gonna go kind of frame by frame here, talk about different injury mechanisms and the things that I'd be concerned for most. As always, if you enjoy learning about this unique side of sports, please consider subscribing to my channel, and let's get started. Here's our play where Fultz gets injured, and this was the view that a lot of people saw right away first. He plants on this left leg, and keep an eye on the position of his left knee. That motion right here where we see his left knee cave inward as he's kind of falling over to the left side, that's what has people initially concerned about his ACL. As we look from this different angle here, Fultz is driving in, and keep an eye on how he gets bumped by the defender, because this bump, I think, is part of what led to this injury. He essentially gets bumped off, the ball kind of comes out to his left, his balance is thrown off here, which is called a perturbation. And as he then steps on that left foot, he plants really hard. And right as he plants, he's trying to get his body to come across to the right side. We can see that knee fall inward, and then he goes down, ultimately grabbing at that left knee. Based on this initial review, there's a few major things I'm concerned about. The first of which is certainly going to be an ACL tear. But there's also some things that make me concerned about something like a quad tendon rupture or even a patellar tendon rupture, so we'll talk through those here a little bit as well. Here we're looking kind of top down through the knee joint, so what I've got highlighted here is going to be our ACL, kind of running from the front of the tibia to the back side of the femur. We then have our PCL here in the back, our two menisci, and then the MCL and the LCL here on the outside. So there's a number of things about this play that make me concerned about his ACL. Keep an eye here on that left knee. Again, like I said, we can see that left knee fall inward. This inward position where the knee is falling inward, the foot is out, the trunk is kind of leaned a little bit over that left side. We call this a few things: a dynamic knee valgus, increased knee abduction, basically are all describing this position of the knee falling inward. Typically then, if the knee is falling inward and we get some internal rotation of the tibia relative to the femur, that's sort of that perfect situation where the ACL can tear. In this position, you can tell that his foot is pointed out, so it might look like his tibia is externally rotated. But if you actually are in pronation, meaning the foot is kind of flat in the way it's turned out, that actually is going to cause some internal rotation in the tibia, and so that also makes us think about that relative motion that can injure the ACL. It's really this kind of very initial step here, plant, and then boom, right there is when we can see that quick little motion of that knee falling inward that can potentially put that ACL at risk. There's a couple other features of this play that we have to keep an eye on. The first is that we see he's got this trunk lean, this lateral trunk lean, where we often see with ACL tears that the trunk is basically tilted over the affected side. Here, Fultz is leaning over that left side, which is going to put increased load on that knee joint. Now, some might say this is non-contact, but if we back this up, there actually was contact like I was mentioning earlier. As Fultz is driving in here, he gets bumped by the defender, and it's really that bump that kind of causes this perturbation that shifts his body off to the side and causes his neuromuscular system to try to adapt and react really quickly, but in this case wasn't necessarily able to. So I'd call this kind of an indirect contact mechanism. It's not contact to his leg, but it's indirect contact in the sense that he's getting bumped in his trunk, which causes him to lean over that side, causes his knee to fall inward, putting the ACL at risk. Now, I mentioned the possibility of a quad tendon or patellar tendon rupture, and it's pretty much because of what we were seeing when Fultz is on the ground here. In this view, you can kind of see these kind of spots on his femur that to me look like what we call the femoral condyles. If we go back to our anatomy here, you can see these two kind of bumps. If we look at the contour of our femur, you can tell there are these two little bumps here, and that almost looks like what we could be seeing here. And I wouldn't expect it to look that clear unless there's kind of a defect there from potentially the quad tendon rupturing. Again, just based on the position he's holding his leg here, I can't tell if this is just kind of some contour from his tattoos, but to me it looks like we're seeing more of an outline of those femoral condyles, which could suggest possible quad tendon rupture. Like what happened to Victor Oladipo, we often see those when guys put maximal contraction onto a flexed knee when that tendon is maximally activated. As Fultz is coming in here, when he plants right there and then tries to push off, that position where he's stepping and landing is putting an extreme amount of tension on his quad and his patellar tendon, and honestly could fit if we find out that he's ruptured one of those two tendons. It wouldn't be that surprising. The other thing too is his reaction. So it's pretty much right when he plants that he reacts and is already given out. It's not really when that knee starts to fall inward more that he kind of gives up on the play. it's really right there when he plants. And so hard to say, but I think we have to also consider the possibility of that quad tendon. Best case scenario, trying to be optimistic here, I'd wonder about the MCL, possible meniscus injury, or just a bone contusion. When Fultz's knee kind of ultimately caves in here all the way at the end, this position is going to put a lot more stress on his MCL and on his menisci than just purely the ACL. So I think there certainly is a possibility that he's avoided the ACL, the quad tendon. And I think best case scenario would be looking at something like the MCL, potential meniscus injury, or an injury, just a bone contusion from the tibia and the femur making contact here. So expect an MRI from Fultz. Potentially by the end of this video, we might even have an answer to kind of one of these items on the differential here. If so, I'll be sure to mention that in the description and down in the comments. But hopefully this was interesting to kind of take a look at this play, kind of breaking down some of the things we think about in terms of possible injury mechanisms and biomechanics. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.